the evidence developed by the special counsel is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense.
After much anticipation, the report is out, and reaction to the redacted version of Robert Mueller's report is in. Attorney General William Barr explaining his own conclusions of the special counsel's report to the country. Now, that report is being analyzed and reanalyzed this weekend, and everyone has an opinion, right? The spokesperson for the Colorado Republican National Committee issued this statement saying President Trump has been vindicated by rule of law, adding Democrats in Congress accept the findings of no collusion once and for all and move on for the good of the American people. Well, I sat down with Colorado Congressman Joe Neguse shortly after that report was released, and while he had not read it all, he had this to say about what he had learned so far.
I have not reviewed the report in full. I'm in the process of reviewing it. Have reviewed some of the report. Certainly from what I've seen thus far, it's deeply concerning. I think high level, what I would say is it's important that we in the Congress receive the unredacted report. I think that ultimately, in order for us to engage in our constitutional duty of oversight, it's important that we be able to see the report in full so that we can then make the appropriate determinations. But, again, from what I've read thus far, and I think you've seen some reactions already from various legal experts and other members of Congress, it is deeply troubling. It's important that we have the rule of law respected in this country, and I think from my perspective, I'm going to continue to look through the report really carefully, and then I will have further comment, I imagine, in the coming days.
And do you think it would be possible that Congress could take action on it?
I certainly think it's possible, but again, from my perspective, we've waited a long time to get the report. In my opinion, waited too long in the last few weeks, given that the Attorney General, I believe, could have released this report a few weeks ago rather than issuing a summary that we now know was deeply misleading when juxtaposed against what we have seen thus far from the report. So I think it's important for members of Congress and for the American public to take the time to review the report, and then we can collectively have a conversation about what comes next.
You've been busy in Congress in your short time there. I think one of the first issues is dealing with Cory Gardner on resolving the conflict between the state and the feds over marijuana. Is that a priority? Yeah,
it's one of our priorities. It's been an impactful 100 days. There's been a lot of legislative activity. We've introduced 10 bills in the Congress, more than any freshman member of Congress, which we're very proud of. We have a great team that we've assembled that have been very busy. And as you mentioned, one of the bills that we've introduced, the States Act with Senator Gardner, as well as the CORE Act with Senator Bennett, kind of different issues, very different bills, both of which address some really fundamental issues to our state. With respect to the former, the States Act, really trying to resolve the federal and state, kind of battle between federal and state regulatory regimes as far as cannabis is concerned.
So why is that a priority for you so early on?
Well, I mean, number one, there's a fairly large industry in our state. Obviously, the voters made the decision in Colorado to legalize marijuana, both medicinally and recreationally. And so I think it's important that at the end of the day, legitimate businesses that are legally regulated by our state, that those do not come under the threat of federal prosecution, as has been the case in the past. So resolving this under federal law, it's a public safety issue. When you think about, by way of example, the inability for many businesses to access the banking system. So you have billions or millions of dollars flowing through that ultimately is not getting banked. I think that's a problem. So making sure that that industries that are, again, legal under state law can access the federal monetary and banking system and financial system, I would think would be something that we could all agree on.
So you're part of this group that's new to Congress, obviously. What is it that you've learned that you wanted to do that hasn't been done in politics before?
Look, I think the freshman class, I mean, as you know, it's a very diverse, ideologically diverse, geographically diverse, racially and so forth class. There are 62 new Democratic freshmen. One of the highlights for me has been serving as the co-representative of the freshman class to leadership. And that has given me the ability to kind of help shape the agenda and for the House Democratic Caucus, but also to get to know my freshman colleagues really well. And what I would say is I think this new class of members of Congress are certainly doing things differently. We are very aggressive, I think, in terms of trying to deliver results. And I'll give you just a great example, town halls. I mean, there used to be a time when members of Congress, unfortunately, would not hold town halls as frequently as I think citizens would like. Town halls have now, certainly for us and for many members of the freshman class, have become the rule instead of the exception.
That's
and
exciting,
to
yes.
give you an example of kind of a new way, something we're doing is a service town hall, kind of a new initiative that folks in my office came up with, in which we have a town hall that gives citizens the ability to provide feedback to me and ask questions about what's happening in Washington, but then also engage together in a service activity. We'll actually be doing another one, this Saturday at Estes Park, cleaning up the trails up at Rocky Mountain National Park.
I know you're sitting on the climate committee. What are your goals? What's your priority with that? I know that that's a big issue in Colorado.
It's a big issue. You know, as I campaigned for the better part of 2 years, I talked a lot about how I saw climate change as an existential threat. And I really do believe that we collectively have got to work together to find solutions that'll move the needle. The Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, I'm proud to be one of 15 members of Congress and the only one from Colorado and the Rocky Mountain West to serve on the committee and to try to highlight the ways in which climate change is impacting our state in a really acute way. I mean, you see this, of course, in a very pronounced way with respect to the wildfires that our state experiences. So my goal is to leverage the expertise of the scientists that I represent in Boulder and, you know, at NIST and NOAA and incredible federal labs across our state to see if we can, again, find some solutions that could pass the Congress that would reduce our carbon emissions and ensure that we can breathe clean air and drink clean water and so forth.
One last question for you, and this is the weekend that we're remembering the 20th anniversary of Columbine. You recently said that we need to continue the push for true gun safety laws. So what does that mean to you? Yeah,
so, you know, I joined with so many other Coloradans in really honoring the victims and the survivors of Columbine. I can remember it very vividly, being a 14-year-old freshman, as we were talking about earlier, growing up in Highlands Ranch. And I just, from my vantage point as a young father, I have a 7-month-old daughter. My wife and I, you know, think about her eventually going to preschool and public school in Boulder County, and I want to know that she's going to be safe. No parent should have to worry about whether their child will be able to come home safe from school. So we're acting in the House. We passed H.R. 9, which is a bipartisan universal background check bill. Was proud that that bill came through our committee, the Judiciary Committee, and passed the House with bipartisan support. There's a lot more that we can do. Obviously, the events of just the last 48 hours earlier this week have given us all pause as we reflect about what other policy solutions might be available to try to address really the public health crisis that is gun violence.
So what would your dream be? What would you like to see happen?
There are a variety of solutions. I think that moving forward on an assault weapons ban is something that I've certainly been very passionate about. I think extending waiting day periods, a variety of other measures at the federal level, trying to increase funding with respect to studying gun violence and the causes and so forth. There's a lot in the policy portfolio that we could pursue. I think the problem is not a lack of solutions. It's been a lack of political will on the part of many people in Congress. I'm grateful that our legislators here locally and the governor have taken the lead with respect to the red flag law that passed just earlier this month.
When we come back, finding hope after Columbine. Stay with us.